an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars, Season 2, Episode 3, Cheatty, Cheatty, Bang Bang. In this episode, the man who turned up with Veronica's name on his hand apparently was sent to kill Veronica, but I can't help but think it's a shitty hitman who writes the name of the man or woman he intends to kill on his hand in giant-ass Sharpie letters. Call me crazy. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. And yeah, this episode, it wound up with at a conclusion that I had assumed from episode 1, which was that probably whoever, because of course I assumed that the bus had been, what's the word I want to say? I keep wanting to say ransacked. That's not the word. Booby-trapped isn't the one. Sabotaged. That's what I want. I assumed that it had been sabotaged, and I theorized that it was to get at Veronica, but I couldn't think who would want to do that. And it appears, at first glance, in this episode at least, that it was Aaron Eccles who wanted to get back at Veronica for ruining his life and exposing him as the murderer of Lily. And I don't know how I feel about this as a motive. It feels like too easy to me, first of all. And it feels like the guy who, like I said, went after her, supposedly, writing her name on his hand the way that he did just feels like, I'm not saying the dude was a professional. The impression that I get when she does research on him, it doesn't seem to be that he was full-time at the garage, part-time hitman. At the same time, there's no alternative explanation that I can come up with as to why he would have her name on his hand at all. And I think that's really the flaw for me, is that unless somebody wrote her name on this man's dead body and wanted it to be as obvious as possible, and so they did it in Sharpie, that would be the only satisfying reason that I could come up with why you would write someone's name on your hand in that manner. It is just, that's the kind of thing that if you so much as go to the gas station and buy a bottle of water, the cashier is going to see that on your hand. Basically what I'm saying is it's written in such a way that it would not be missed by anybody you interacted with all day. And I feel like that sets a really bad precedent. Am I wrong? So I don't know. And also there's no sort of flicker of recognition in his eyes when he sees Veronica, because she remembers finally that she saw him lighting a candle at the cliffside where the bus went over. And there is nothing in his eyes to me in that moment that indicates that he recognizes her or realizes that she's the one that he was originally after or anything like that. So it's just a really strange turn for things to take that I don't know that I buy. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about the whole way that goes down and the way that they're turning this that feels like it's not really what's happening. And we'll see how this all turns out. So this episode, we start off with our class that's called the Business Leaders of America. And when they say Business Leaders of America, what they're saying is all the rich kids, deep fucking sigh, because it's not like they're wrong. But yeah, this dude is just it turns out that the guy that's leading the class, well, there's the actual teacher, but the dude who is coming in to teach them about real estate is actually Beaver and Dick's father. And this dude, it turns out, is full of shit and very, very shady. And he's teaching them all about real estate and like how to invest in it and all this shit, without sharing, understandably, how incredibly much he is conning everybody, including their teacher. And that's the part that's so fucking heartbreaking, you guys. Her teacher has been investing in this man, in his properties, for years, and has gotten enough out of it that he can retire in, I think he says, 9 months. Which, like, if only, and I'm getting ahead of myself. When Veronica tells him, you need to sell because this is going bad, and it's going bad promptly because I am about to expose it all personally. His very compassionate, kind-hearted response is, you don't dump stocks. You don't dump stocks. You don't dump stocks. You sell them to someone else. So that means I would have to dupe some other poor son of a bitch into losing a bunch of money. And I can't do that. Like, my conscience won't let me do that. So part of me wishes that he had just cashed out a few months ahead of time without Veronica ever having to tell him anything. And he would have been able to make out like a bandit. But as it is, he has to kiss the dreams of retiring goodbye because he just sank a bunch of money into this boat, pun intended, that he's not going to be able to get any use out of. Like, I just feel for this guy so much. There is nothing quite like thinking that you have found the way out of your bad situation and then having the rug pulled out from under you. And this is something that I was actually just talking about on my personal Facebook page about a week ago, is these Spoil Me episodes have been going so well, and I've been getting such consistent commissions, but I am terrified. I can't relax and I can't enjoy the success because I am incredibly paranoid that it's all going to dry up overnight and I will have gotten dependent on money that's no longer there. And I'm sure eventually I'll begin to trust that this is a real thing that will continue to be stable for me. But it's a really, I mean, this is how I felt initially when I started to do Patreon as well. And it's certainly a concern when basically your paycheck is at the will of your customers. You know, that's how it is for any small business owner. It's just you're relying on trends to maintain, and it's just something that, like, this teacher is living out like my worst nightmare in terms of thinking he's found a sure thing, making plans, being, as far as he knows, really smart about how he is handling everything. And it's still not smart enough because the guy in charge is a fucking crook. And that's just, like, you can't help that. People out there are not going to have your best interests at heart. And you can prepare for that only so much without just not living your life at all, you know? So this was really, really tough to watch in that respect. And what it turns out is basically that, like, what is Beaver and well, Cassidy and Dick's last name? What is their father's name? If y'all would help me out. He is telling everybody that he has this, like, amazing resort that's going to be open. Casablancas. That's right. What a weird fucking last name. Thank you, Rachel. But yeah, he is assuring everyone that he has this amazing resort that's going to be opened called the Sandpiper. And Veronica winds up following his wife to what is the real Sandpiper. And it's a real shithole. You know, the picture that he has on this brochure is a like 25-story, beautiful, state-of-the-art hotel. And Sandpiper that she goes to is this like 1-story friggin' motel. And this is the kind of thing that I wonder about how much you could pull this off today. Because there are a lot of things in Veronica Mars that I feel like in a modern setting just couldn't quite work the way that they did when the show was created. But we've seen a lot of other episodes in which the internet has played a huge role in things. And yet in this, everybody's relying on these like paper brochures that he had printed out on some glossy 8x10s. And I can't imagine how long he thought he could sustain this con, because it's going to come out. And what is he going to do? Is he basically socking all of his profits away into like an offshore account that can't be, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't understand what the long-term plan was here. Because it took almost nothing for her to figure out that he was full of shit. All she had to do was follow his wife around for a little bit. And the fact that there are people investing in Sandpiper without ever having set eyes on it, and it's close enough for her to just drive to for an afternoon, is bizarre to me and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm not going to say that it's completely unbelievable, because I don't have enough familiarity with, like, you know, with the real estate business and how those kinds of things are normally handled. So maybe people often do just take someone's word on it that this thing is real. But I feel like this seems like a pretty like low level con. And it's sort of the same as like, oh, I have this bridge that I can sell you, you know? So the fact that this teacher is supposed to be teaching them all how to be a smart investor, and he doesn't actually like follow up on the plans that he's like putting all of his life savings into. Maybe you're not awesome at this, and maybe you shouldn't be teaching this guy, because that seems like basic homework. I would just never, I don't know if it's just paranoia, like stemming from the same issues that I was mentioning before, but I don't think I would ever be comfortable sinking money of that magnitude into something that I had not seen with my own eyes, touched with my own hands, and didn't get like updates on every like 3 days. I would be checking up on that shit all the time. I would just be so worried. So anyway, and also, can we talk about how like Cassidy is just begging for his father's attention, and his dad ignores him in such a way that like, it's not just hurtful, but it's like, have you no shame, sir? It's really fucking painful to watch. And I feel so bad for Cassidy, because in the end, he winds up being like responsible for his dad getting outed. But also, he was doing this to protect his dad because he knows that this woman is taking advantage of him. And so it's this terrible thing where like Cassidy is looking out for his dad, even though his dad is clearly not looking out for him. And he winds up fucking up so badly that it's probably going to push his father even further away. And I feel really bad for this kid. Like, and also now he knows that it was like a friend of his that was fucking his stepmom. And wow, that is some shit. Poor Cassidy. He was not ready. All right. So I'm going to, jump ahead to when he gets Veronica to agree to take these photos. She is not really interested in taking this on, but he offers her $500, and she's like, you're going to pay me $1,000. He's like, all right, fine, because that's how desperate he is and how sure he is. He knows something's going on. Veronica then leaves school and gets stopped by the deputy who wants to bring her in to talk to the sheriff because of this guy with her name on his hand. And she goes in there and does her usual fucking smart ass, like, oh, you've got me. I'm guilty of not knowing what the fuck I'm here for and what is going on right now. Like, why are you doing this to me? And she says something about how I'm sure my father would be real interested to know why I'm here. To which he's like, hey, you just turned 18, so you're an adult and your father doesn't need to know anything about this. And I was like, really surprised, actually, that she's already 18 on the show, although it frees up a lot in terms of what she's allowed to do as an adult without her father knowing. And I feel like that's probably a smart thing to do so that the show has a little bit more freedom of movement with her character. And also, if she's 18, does that mean that Logan is also 18? Because if he is, the stepmother is not guilty of statutory rape, which I had been assuming until this point would be something that she could get nailed for, pun intended. And if he is of age, then it's just cheating, and that's it, which obviously is going to be a problem for her with the prenup, but is not going to be an issue with like the law, and that changes the stakes for her a little bit. So I would assume that he and Veronica were the same age. So, but yeah, so she gets brought in. She is talked to by Lamb, who's like, do you know this guy? And she doesn't know what the hell he's even talking about. And then when she sees the picture, she actually recognizes this dude as being the one who is lighting the candle at the cliffside, which, guys, I really want your opinion on this. How many of you, upon glancing at a person for 5 seconds, would the very next day, after being shown a photo of their body, remember that you had seen this person? Because I personally am not confident. Like, I go to Walmart every day and run into people all over the place, and I can't think that I would remember a single one of their faces. Like, Rachel's saying never. I have a terrible memory. Yeah, like, the fact that she remembers this guy, maybe it's not incredibly, like, difficult for her because she's done so much private investigating. Maybe she's a lot better than the average person at remembering faces. But, like, I can't imagine that. And the only thing that I think makes sense in terms of her recognizing this dude is that the photo that he shows her is the dude is wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And I think he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt at the cliff's edge. And that's all it is that I think would really make the connection for me. Yeah, he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt both times. Okay, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and he's like bald and older. I guess that's significant enough. But that's it. So yeah, but she remember, everybody's in the comments. This is why witnesses are useless in criminal trials. Useless, says Krista in all caps. Unless they looked really unique or something, like a distinctive tattoo or like purple hair. Yeah, right. Tons of scientific evidence proves they are awful and white people are nearly always racist as fuck. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I just can't. Just the fact that she remembered this guy, and one of you at the end of the last episode when his body turns up is like, well, we've seen him before. I'm watching a television show and I don't even remember, like I'm watching characters come and go. I am aware of the necessity to be paying attention, and yet it doesn't register for me. So her just living her daily life, I just don't buy it, but it's fine. It doesn't really matter. It's just one of those things that I find kind of interesting. So yeah. And when she admits that she saw him, or that she knows who he is, he shows her an earring and asks her if she was missing an earring, and that it was found outside this bar that he frequented. Now, okay, I'm gonna read like exactly what he says here. Let's see, how far back? Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. Missing an earring, and then he holds it up, and it's this diamond like square. It's so not Veronica's style, which if he knew anything, he would realize just looking at it. And it was found outside the Roadhog biker bar up the PCH, last place Curly here was seen. It seems that Curly had your name on him, and she doesn't know what that means until he shows her the photograph of her name written on his hand. His body washed up on the beach, and he was beaten to death. And I'm just like, well, first of all, you can't think that Veronica beat him to death. Like, right? But I don't know what he does think. And I also am not sure why an earring found outside a bar, the last place that he was seen, is being held as evidence that like the person was involved with this guy's disappearance. Like, yeah, it's the last place he's seen, but do y'all know how often earrings fall off? Like, it's crazy how frequently that happens. And the idea that they are like taking, I guess that they're probably going to try and test it for DNA, I would imagine, which would, absolve her, because I fucking know that Veronica didn't do this, and that she wouldn't wear that square diamond earring either. If it's diamonds, that's got to be somebody that's like either well off, or it's like, I mean, that could be the single solitary earring that a gangbanger would wear too. 'Cause Lord knows gangbangers love diamonds. But yeah, I just can't, like, the way that Lamb handles this whole thing, he's such a fucking dope, and he really thinks he saw that, and it's so annoying to watch. And just the whole way that he handles it, I'm just like, dude, you need to fucking chill out. So she goes home, and her dad is hanging out with Alicia, and she doesn't want to tell him anything that happened because she knows that he's going to freak the fuck out. Meanwhile, Alicia has a fucking shady past, guys, which we see a little bit more of later. He suggests going away together and going to this place that has this particular jazz club, and she has sort of a weird reaction to it. And he's like, well, what's the problem? I thought that you really liked jazz. And she's like, no, it's fine. No, that sounds perfect. And I'm like, okay. And then when they go, this dude recognizes her, and he follows her all the way to the elevators, and he's calling her by another name, Cher. And when he can't follow them, he watches like where the elevator stops, goes to the front desk and asks for like their names. And the dude says, well, I can't give you that information. And he holds up a badge. And I didn't see what kind of badge it was. If it was like, like a local detective, like, police detective, or if it was FBI or something like that, if it was even real. But I'm worried about this because I tried to think up a few different like situations that would explain this. And I don't know that anything I'm coming up with makes sense in terms of Wallace not knowing. And I don't get any kind of secrecy from Wallace. So whatever went on with his mother, I feel like either happened on the DL and he is not aware of it, or it just happened before he was born. And if it happened before he was born, for somebody to like still be at this place and still recognize her after all this time feels pretty unlikely. So I feel like it just has to be something that Wallace wasn't aware of. And maybe that's part of why they moved here in the first place. Because, he was a new student in the first season. So, and this guy, it could be that she's wanted for something like illegal activity, or it could be that he's like an abusive ex who's using the fact that he's a cop to like find her, because Lord knows that fucking is a very common thing. So yeah, I don't really know where I'm falling on this yet because I don't have enough information, but I'm just worried about her because she seems pretty cool, and I don't feel like she probably did anything that's like, going to change my opinion of how decent a person she is. But that's me, and I don't know how Keith would feel about it, because he's obviously pretty crazy about her, and he's already had one wife who just like decided to fucking completely take advantage of him and disappear. And what if he finds out that she did something similar to somebody in her past? Is he going to be able to like understand that? Like, I feel like there's just, there's something about somebody, even if you feel like, oh, well, their situation was different. If somebody has done the exact thing that hurt you to another person and you had no idea, it's definitely going to like sting in a very specific way that I think is kind of hard to get over. So I just don't want anything to happen to her relationship to Keith, right? That's really like what it comes down to for me. It's like, can't you just be cool? Can't you guys just have fun and be happy together? And can't Keith have a good time and not have to like always have some weird drama around whoever he's interested in and or dating and or married to? So, okay, we have Veronica, and she is following Kendall around as she goes about her day. And Kendall is just like, running a million errands. She's going to the gym. She's going to these cafes. She's going to spas. She's doing all of this stuff. And everywhere that she's going, she has a gym bag with her. Now, I guess the gym bags are full of money, but do we ever actually officially find out what's in those bags? Because what Veronica assumes this first time is that the gym bags are full of their own clothes. And when they go and meet at one of the properties and go into the hotel room, that they're going in there to have sex and that they brought a change of clothes so that they can like go home not smelling like the other person. Which I guess, I don't think most people take that kind of precaution, but maybe they do. But it turns out, that she's helping her husband with his shady business dealings. Now, I'm just really surprised at the fact that Veronica thinks taking a photo of the two of them just walking into a hotel together is going to be enough. Because as soon as I saw that, my first thought was they could be doing anything in there. And that's like almost word for word what Cassidy says later. But she decides that she's going to go for the money shot, as she puts it. And she like figures out a way to put a camera into Kendall's, what do you call it? MP3 player. And apparently it just happens to sit in exactly the right place on the sideboard in the hotel room that it takes perfect pictures of Kendall and Logan getting undressed later. And I find that to be unlikely, but it's totally fine. I'm not going to, I'm not going to hold that against the show. You need some things to work out, and it's fine. But yeah, Rachel is over here in the corner saying convenient, right? Yeah, right. Definitely. So we'll deal with the fallout from that a bit later. Let's back up to what's going on with Wallace and Jackie. So I said last episode, I hate Jackie. I hate her. Part of that is because I'm not a huge Tessa Thompson fan and I find her kind of irritating. I want to like her a lot more than I do, in terms of her acting. But, the first impression that we get of her last episode is her being a complete spoiled brat to her father. Just an enormous snob to Veronica when she comes into the coffee shop. And the way that she wants to go after this woman for scratching her car when she wasn't supposed to bring that car to school in the first place. So guess what? You have nobody to blame but yourself. She does not seem like a mature person who takes any responsibility for anything. So the fact that she's only dating older guys feels right to me, because she seems like the kind of person that would want to be with people that she can kind of ride with, but not have to put too much energy forth for, because she's super hot and she knows that that's all you need. If you're dating a guy who's that much older than you, he doesn't care about your personality. He doesn't care about anything but the fact that you are super hot, and that's all he wants. So low energy, high payback in terms of if they are themselves hot or going to spoil her or whatever. Now, Wallace is totally into her. And he seems to like think that there's some, I don't know if it's jealousy going on with Veronica. Maybe there is some jealousy there for her. But he tells her at one point to like retract her claws because he doesn't know the interaction that she's already had with Jackie. And when Jackie comes and sits with them at lunch and Veronica says something like, yeah, she suggested I step outside my job description last time she came to the coffee shop. Jackie's response is, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I forgot to leave the New York attitude in New York. And that's one of those things that I'm just like, maybe... But I really feel like that's just your attitude. I don't feel like that's any, like, the way that she's behaving when she's around Wallace and Veronica and Duncan feels really fake to me. I feel like when she says leave the New York attitude in New York, what she means is I can't really be myself out here. I think that's more accurate. And all she does is name drop and talk about all of the exciting people that she's met and known and things she's done. And Veronica is very tired of it, like right away, and feels like this girl is posing and posturing and only interested in telling them stories about herself. Now, I will be honest, when they've, are talking about Pride and Prejudice and they've just finished watching and Wallace says something about how I don't understand the appeal of Mr. Darcy. Is it just because he's got a bunch of money? And she's like, oh no, I met Colin Firth and trust me, it's not that. Like he just has something. I liked this, the way that she presents this. Like I met him and he's still, but, and so I found the story, like as she begins to tell it, charming. And I thought the way she was telling it was actually interesting. But then we pull out and we hear Veronica's voiceover with, and this is how it's been all night. And that to me really changed it because it's one thing when somebody like, and I think we've all met this person, right? Where you have somebody who you like immediately that you're like, oh, this is a really fun thing about them. And I like this little, and then you start to realize that they fall back on doing this thing that you initially found kind of fun all the time, and that's kind of their entire personality or some like a weird crutch for them in terms of conversation. And all of a sudden it goes from being the thing that you thought was fun about them to something that's like mildly pathetic in a way. And I wish that we had gotten to see this instead of just taking Veronica's word for it, that it's been like this all night. Because obviously Veronica's first impression of this girl was not good. And people talk about first impressions being important for that reason, because it really is hard to overcome what you make someone think of you the first time that they meet you. So I just can't help but wonder how much of this is genuinely this girl doing nothing but talking about herself over and over again. And how much of it is just Veronica doesn't like her for her own reasons, and they're valid reasons, don't get me wrong, to begin with, and thus not giving the girl the benefit of the doubt, or not really understanding that maybe this is how Jackie copes with being out of her element and kind of uncomfortable, is by telling stories about herself because she doesn't really know how to relate to people in another way. And, whatever the case, Veronica doesn't have to like Wallace's girlfriend, it would be nice, and that's the ideal situation, but it's not totally necessary. He can date who he wants, but it's definitely like, it's definitely a bummer if you are dating somebody who doesn't get along with your friends, because most of the time when you look back on it after you've split up with that person, you realize that they didn't get along with your friends for a reason, because they were terrible and you just didn't see it. And that's often what happens. I don't know what to make of it though, because Duncan seems to like her, and Duncan doesn't seem like he'd be that easily snowed by somebody. I mean, especially as he is somebody with plenty of money and who probably knows lots of famous people as well. I just don't see him falling for it. So all I can think is that this is due to a particular prejudice of Veronica's specifically, and not because of things that this woman is doing, this girl is doing. I don't know, guess woman, whatever, young woman. So yeah, I am curious on how this is going to turn out. And Veronica, of course, winds up feeling more justified than ever later on when she's at the coffee shop and Jackie turns up with this other guy that she's seeing. And Veronica's sort of like, oh, really? Like, I caught you cheating, and seems to be sort of baffled that Jackie doesn't seem more ashamed of herself or embarrassed at all. And I just was like, Veronica, sweetie, maybe Wallace will be upset because I imagine he thinks that he's the only one. But as far as we know, Jackie made no promise to anybody. She never said that she was like exclusive with Wallace. And I was definitely somebody who, unless I specifically promised monogamy, I was dating more than one person at a time. And I just don't really see, like, Veronica is being protective of her friend. Yes. And that's valid. But also, she's sticking her nose in his business a little bit. And she's being more protective than she probably otherwise would, simply because she doesn't like this girl to begin with. And also, you know, the fact that Jackie isn't acting embarrassed or ashamed when running into you, the fact that she took this guy to the coffee shop that she knows you work at, indicates that she does not feel that she has anything to worry about. So Veronica being like, oh, aha, I gotcha. Not really, Veronica. Like, she's not trying to hide anything, obviously. But yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like, I am in agreement with Veronica for the most part, because I just really don't like Jackie. But I can't help but like kind of side-eye Veronica as well and just be like, there's plenty here that you're mad about that I don't know that it's entirely justified. I have to await further developments, in other words. So we'll see what winds up happening with that. And don't get me wrong, like I said, despite the fact that she hasn't pledged to be monogamous, that doesn't mean that Wallace isn't going to feel betrayed. Because Wallace probably doesn't think that that's like... we haven't seen Wallace being serious with anybody. There was that one girl that he liked in the episode that came to him looking for help to recover some money that she lost in a very obvious scam. And that wound up like not turning into anything. Otherwise, we haven't seen him being in relationships, so I'm not sure exactly how experienced he is or how cynical or not he is about it. So there's a possibility that he sort of is like bummed, but also like, but we didn't make it exclusive, and I guess I'll just have to like work harder to get her to want that. Or he could be like, you know, what the fuck? I didn't think I needed to say we were exclusive because I just didn't think that she was going to do this and like play around. There could be a bunch of different ways that he takes it. And I'm not totally sure what to expect, because let's be honest, if a girl is hot enough and a guy is enough into her, he will let her get away with a lot more than he would someone else. So it sort of all hangs on how much Wallace is into her. And I kind of feel like he'd be willing to let her get away with a lot. Like, he just seems like he's ready to let her walk all over him a little bit, you know? So I guess we'll see about that. So, all right, let's see. Oh, we have the meetup with Veronica and Cassidy where he's like, yeah, these pictures are not enough. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And we have, this scene. I forgot about this. So Logan is sitting next to Duncan when they do their young businessmen of the world or whatever. And this thing, it's so forced, and not in a way that I feel like is bad writing necessarily. It's so forced in a way that like, what exactly? So the teacher is telling them all that he has this boat that he's going to retire, and that there have been some problems with it, and that they have had to reseal the hull twice. And Logan says, "Oh, didn't plug her right the first time, huh?" And then looks over at Duncan, who loses his shit immediately and launches himself at Logan. Now, I didn't even register that as being an insult to Duncan. I know that he has slept with Veronica before, but it was like they were drugged and they were both like, she didn't even remember it. So I guess that's what he's saying is like, I know you fucked her once before, but I also know that you're fucking now, and maybe she was with me because you didn't do it right the first time, is what he's saying here. But the whole, like, it feels so it feels so off the mark to me that the way Duncan completely loses it is very out of proportion, I feel like, to the quality of the dig that he made. I don't know, guys. Like, correct me on this if you think I'm wrong. But it leads to a fist fight that just doesn't feel justified to me. And they both are in the nurse's office and still sort of like fucking poking at each other verbally. And at one point, Duncan says, "Veronica had already dumped you. I didn't take her from you." To which Logan is like, "Man, forget Veronica. I don't even care about that anymore. Where have you been?" And Duncan is like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he's like, "What do you mean? What do I mean? I was fucking accused of murder. Like, there has been a whole bunch of shit coming down on my head, and you were supposed to have my back, and you have been nowhere around." To which, understandably, Duncan is like, "Your father murdered my sister. Why would I be around?" Now look, is he wrong? No. But also, that's not Logan's fault. But also, separating Logan from his dad's deeds is a real tricky emotional proposition. And I get that. But also, you guys were supposed to be friends, and you were supposed to, like, have his back, and he went through some of the worst shit of his entire life. But also, you went through some of the worst shit of your entire life. And both of your parents are being indicted, I guess. Like, they're both going through such terrible shit. And they're both at the whims of what their parents decided to do. And I really feel for both of them in this situation and this storyline. The two of them, like, being angry at each other and holding each other to these standards feels really right to me. Because I kind of wondered about this at the end of the last season with the finale. I was just like, how in the fuck are they going to get past this with each other? And so far the answer is they're not gonna. Like, I'm appreciating that Veronica, in Logan's mind, is very much secondary to everything else. Like, for him, the fact that Duncan was supposed to be his best friend and then fucking vanished on him when he needed him the most, that to him is a lot more unforgivable than anything that went on with her. And I like that. It shows, I think, that he has the proper priorities. It shows that he cares about his friend. I can't help but wonder, like, if we had gotten to see a little bit more of what was going on with Logan right after his mom died. Like, it seemed like he was hanging out mostly with Dick and Cassidy and not really very much with Duncan at that point. And so, like, how there for him was Duncan? I mean, we have the scene where he comes over and Logan basically tells him, I don't think my mom is actually dead, and shares with him the theories that he has, which he hasn't shared with anybody else. So I guess Duncan was still pretty there for him in that regard. But yeah, and so when he says, like, your father murdered my sister, he starts to walk away, and Logan calls after him, I hate him too. And then the nurse is, like, cleaning out his wound. She comes back and is cleaning out his knuckles that he, like, cut by punching Duncan in the face. And she says, stings, doesn't it? As she's cleaning it out. And I'm like, okay, show. Calm down. But yeah, I really feel for Logan in this. And so later on, when Veronica is showing Cassidy the second batch of photos that she got, he gets up and leaves at one point. And when she comes back to, like, check out the images on her computer that she was showing him, the one that he clearly left after seeing was the one of Logan getting undressed. And I just, like, the look on her face, I mean, there's a moment where his hand is coming at the camera, guys. Because she scrolls through several pictures. He knows the camera's there, right? Am I wrong? And he wants to get caught. Because when she confronts him later, he is totally unconcerned about getting caught. And she realizes that what this has turned into for him is like this nihilistic, basically, like, death wish. That he wants to make somebody so angry that they just take care of the job for him and either, like, put him in the hospital or kill him. More than likely kill him. And so this moment where his hand is coming at the camera, it feels like he moved it just enough so that he could actually have sex with her without the camera picking it up. But he waited long enough that it got both of them on camera so that there was, like, indisputable proof. Am I right? I feel like that's what was going on there. And when she goes and, like, tries to confront him about it, he just, like I said, just does not care. It's I'm very worried about him. I don't like how alone Logan is. It's just hard to watch. It's hard to, like, it's hard to blame him is where I'm at. And this, I feel like, is evidence of really good writing. When there are a lot of shows that I've seen where there's a character who's, like, trying to push everybody away because they feel like nobody understands. And it can get so tiresome and really self-pitying and just be irritating more than anything. And I really like that this show has managed to get that all across to us, like how alone he feels. There's nobody in his life that has his back. Even his friends, he's not close with. And it's done this all in a way that doesn't feel self-pitying, that doesn't feel like they're overreacting by trying to push people away. Because that's the main thing, is that there'll be shows where somebody's, basically feeling like terrible guilt over something that I, as a viewer, don't hold them responsible for at all. And their guilt is boring because I don't agree with it, But where Logan's coming from, there's so many things that have happened that all of them together, it's just this impenetrable ball of misery, Oh yeah, Rachel says, when you're down to Dick as your only friend, you're in a pretty bad state. Yeah, honestly. Like I said, they're not close. Oh yeah, I forgot about the scene where this dude who tried to hail down Alicia is looking through the phone book and finds her name in it. Which, honestly, guys, can we talk about the fact that this man is ripping pages out of a phone book in the year 2004 or whenever this is supposed to be? Like, dude, the internet exists. You also are a cop. What are you doing? But okay, sure. So when Veronica goes and like is going to confront Logan too, when she comes in, the room is absolutely trashed and he has just gotten out of the shower, and he's made it very clear sex was had in here. In an attempt, again, it feels like, to get caught. Like he left the door unlocked. The whole thing is just it's so sad and frustrating. And Veronica being as frustrated as she is with him, I'm like, I really get it. But also, you are so not the person to say these things to him right now. Like, she just doesn't understand. I don't think she does. I really don't think that she has completely grasped where he's coming from. Because she says, poor little rich boy with a death wish. And I'm like, poor little rich boy. That's not fair at all. Like, there was so much more going on here. And then she says, well, I used to think that it was luck that got you in that, bad situation. But no, now I see that you actually enjoy it, don't you, Logan? And I'm like, girl, I just feel like Veronica's being really unfair to him right now. Like, I don't know. I don't love Logan as a person, but he's been dealt a hand that is impossible, So yeah, her frustration here, I understand it to a degree, but I just don't feel like she's being very compassionate with him. So then comes like the biggest leap in the entire world. She's walking through the hall and she passes a poster for a movie called The Long Haul. And apparently Curly was like a stunt guy, I think, on that movie with Aaron. And she spots this poster and realizes that was the movie that he when he signed this photo with Curly, he wrote, all these years still on the long haul. And she realizes that the long haul, there's like an iconic scene of a tractor trailer going over a bridge, a signature stunt. And she's like a stunt supervised by David Curly Moran or Corin or whatever it is. And this to her is leading her to the conclusion that obviously this guy was hired by Aaron to perform that stunt on an actual bus with actual people in it. Okay. I mean, this is what I thought had happened in general, but the sort of pretzels that you need to turn yourself into to get to this conclusion is a little bit much for me. You know what I mean? Like, she's just passing this poster and all of a sudden it all comes together and I'm just like, okay. It feels a little contrived. But whatever it is, we jump from there and her realizing this to Cassidy handing over the photos to his father. And his father is much less upset about his wife cheating on him with a literal high school student than he is about the realization that Cassidy hired a private investigator at all, because it seems like he knows he has not been subtle in his shady dealings and that he has to get the fuck out of here. And he runs down the hall telling everybody to shred everything. Shred all of it. Empty your file. Start shredding right now. Start shredding. Start now. Open your desk. Get all the papers out. Shred them. Do it. Do it right now. Panic, right? And Cassidy is realizing that some shit is happening as some men are appearing and just beginning to chase his father down the hall. And poor Cassidy has this look on his face he can't believe that he just did this to his dad. Meanwhile, his father is running to the roof of the building where he has a chopper all set up and he is going to get away. Now, this dude can fly his own chopper, which I have to admit is pretty badass. And I love the fact that as he's getting into the chopper and flying away, in brackets underneath when you're doing the subtitles, it says guitar riff as the chopper's taking off, which just feels very appropriate. Yeah, so he's taking off, and Duncan gets visited by Veronica, and Duncan is saying, "Did you hear about Dick's dad on the news?" And she doesn't even hear him or address any of that. She just says, "It was me. All of those people on the bus died because of me." And that is the end of the episode. So I'm not sure I agree with a lot of her conclusions about what was going down, but I do think that probably she was the target, and probably all of those people did die. I don't want to say because of her. It's because somebody decided to murder her and did not care that they were killing 12 other people at the same time. But there's no way that if I were her, I wouldn't feel the exact same way that she's feeling. 100% taking responsibility for that, even if it's not my fault. Even though I know I'm not the one who set this shit up. If somebody is trying to kill just me and they decide that I'm so worth killing that they are not sorry to take out a bunch of other people in the same stroke, I wouldn't be able to handle that. That's something to live with that I don't know that I could. So yeah, that is some shit. And I'm just really I feel really bad for Veronica in this, because while I think there were some wild leaps in logic, I still kind of am coming to the same conclusions that she has in general. And I'm wondering what the hell can even happen to Aaron Eccles at this point, because how much of this can even be proven, and Lamb is such a shit that she can't go to him and explain this to him. He's not going to believe her. I don't think he'll take her seriously. So I don't know. And of course, was it even Aaron Eccles, or was it somebody else that tried? Because she still has not seemed to notice how weird Logan was being, where he was like, "I'm going to miss you," right before she got on the bus. Maybe it was Logan. I don't want to think that, but he has not been in a great place, and I could see him just wanting to rid the world of a bunch of people that he feels have not been there for him at all and kind of abandoned him. But I don't know. I don't think that's him. I don't know. I just don't know that it's Aaron. I don't know, guys. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this up. But thank you very much to Rachel Barsness for commissioning this episode. I really appreciate it. I'm a little behind on posting the ones that I have already edited and recorded, so I will be working on those this evening. So those will be going up. And thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. I was a little behind all day today because of this weird scheduling thing. I will be changing up yet again the scheduling service that I use for people to commission these. So I will keep you all posted about that, but I haven't decided on what I'm switching to yet. Just been running into a lot of problems, and I don't know if I can find a service that doesn't have these problems, but I'm going to keep trying. I try and give everybody 4 chances. And if they really screw up in a way that messes with me that badly 4 times, I feel like that's it. I got to move on. And that's what's been happening. So, and it hasn't been that long, it's been 2 months. So yeah, guys, my apologies if you have been trying to commission stuff and it's been acting weird or not going through or, all that kind of thing. But, definitely keep me informed if you are having any problems, and I will try and work with you on that. And thank you all in the chat for coming and hanging out with me, and I will see you soon with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.